Welcome everyone and thank you for joining us today because what you're about to discover may completely change the way you look at the coins sitting in your pocket, your jars, your drawers or even the old boxes tucked away in your house, as today we dive deep into the unbelievable world of rare pennies and reveal the astonishing story behind the 1954 sweet penny. A coin that in extremely rare circumstances has been rumored among collectors, enthusiasts, and treasure hunters to carry a mind-blowing value of up to $85 million, a number so high that it captures the imagination of anyone who hears it. And while most average 1954 sweet pennies are worth only a few cents or a couple of dollars, the extraordinary value attached to this particular hypothetical specimen comes from a perfect storm of error types, striking anomalies, historical circumstances, production quirks, and numismatic mysteries that create an environment where a single mistake can turn a small piece of copper into an unimaginable fortune. So today we're going to explore every angle of the myth, every possibility of the errors that could have created such a rare and valuable piece, every theory from minting flaws to impossible die combinations, every rumor discussed in collector circles, and every reason why a 1954 sweet penny could be placed on a pedestal so high that it becomes a legend in the hobby. And as we move through this incredible exploration, we will peel back decades of speculation, carefully examine the minting environment of the San Francisco Mint in 1954, analyze the way wheat pennies were produced during the final years of the wheat reverse era, uncover the types of mistakes that could have slipped through unnoticed, and investigate the rarest known errors that could elevate a simple copper coin into numismatic superstardom. Because to imagine a coin reaching $85 million, you must imagine a scenario so rare that it defies probability. Combining multiple mistakes layered together like an impossible puzzle that only occurred once in the hundreds of millions of coins produced that year, and this leads us into the heart of the matter, where experts speculate that for such an astronomical value to exist, the error would need to be unprecedented. Perhaps involving a double denomination strike where the penny was accidentally pressed over a dime planchet or struck twice by two different dies from different denominations, creating a hybrid piece unlike anything ever officially recorded. Or it might involve a mule error, where the obverse of the 1954 sweet penny somehow ended up paired with a reverse design from a completely different Euro series, maybe even a memorial reverse that wasn't introduced until 1959, turning the coin into a time-bending anomaly that theoretically should not exist. And because mule errors are among the rarest errors in all of numismatics, with only a handful recorded across all coin types, having a wheat penny mule would instantly make it one of the most valuable coins ever discovered. But that's only one theory among many that collectors debate, as others suggest the coin could be the result of a dramatic off-center strike combined with a major die break that created a unique blob or raised structure on the coin's surface, distorting Lincoln's portrait or the wheat stalks in such a specific, unmistakable way that it becomes instantly recognizable among experts, allowing it to stand out as a once-in-a-lifetime error. While another fascinating possibility comes from the concept of transitional errors, where the wrong metal composition was used by accident. And while 1954 pennies were traditionally minted in copper alloy planchets consisting primarily of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, a freak accident could have led to a leftover steel planchet from the World War II era of 1943 somehow becoming trapped in the system, escaping detection, and being struck with 1,954 dies, which would produce a wheat penny with a silvery appearance that shouldn't exist in that year, instantly skyrocketing its rarity and potential value. And on the topic of metal anomalies, some speculate that a foreign planchet, perhaps intended for a coin from another country whose blanks were being processed at a United States mint facility, could have accidentally found its way onto the production line, causing the 1954 sweet penny to be struck on an improper planchet whose weight, color, dimensions, or texture would be noticeably different from the standard copper alloy, resulting in a coin so unusual that it becomes legendary among collectors. And yet another fascinating error possibility comes from double dies, one of the most sought-after error types in American coinage, where the design appears duplicated due to a mistake during the die hubbing process. And while the most famous double die penny is the 1955 version, experts agree that if a similarly dramatic double die existed for the 1954 penny with strong doubling across Lincoln's date, Liberty, the motto, or the wheat stalks on the reverse, it could easily become one of the most celebrated error coins ever found. But imagine adding additional layers to that, such as a double die combined with a wrong planchet error, combined with an off-center strike and cap die error, creating a coin that has multiple anomalies that are normally extremely rare individually, yet somehow appear together on a single specimen. And this hypothetical combination of errors creates a scenario so improbable that it becomes almost like the numismatic version of winning the lottery multiple times in one day. And it is exactly these kinds of impossibly rare combinations that fuel the rumor mill and create stories about coins like the 1954 sweet penny being worth $85 million, because collectors know that in the world of numismatics the rarest and most valuable coins are typically those with mistakes that were corrected early and that only escape the mint in extremely limited numbers, sometimes only one or two pieces known to exist. And the 1954 penny presents an interesting case because it was struck during a period when the San Francisco Mint was nearing the end of its involvement in producing circulating Lincoln cents, meaning the production environment was transitioning, equipment was aging, workers were adjusting to changing procedures, and the conditions were ripe for unusual minting anomalies to occur. And when you combine that with the fact that hundreds of millions of wheat pennies were struck across decades, yet only a small fraction have survived without damage, corrosion, or wear, it becomes easier to believe that some extraordinary error coins might still be hiding somewhere in private collections, old estates, forgotten drawers, or even pocket change, waiting to be found by someone who has no idea of the treasure they're holding between their fingers. Which is why this coin continues to fascinate collectors and inspire treasure hunters to keep searching, because the possibility of discovering an error so rare that it becomes worth tens of millions of dollars is the kind of dream that keeps the hobby exciting. And when we look closely at the environment of the San Francisco Mint in 1954, we find that it was a year marked by a variety of minor and moderate errors across different denominations produced there, including die cracks, repunched mint marks, misaligned dies, improperly annealed planchets, and small die chips that formed raised bumps on the design. So while most of these errors are minor and worth only small premiums, they suggest that the minting environment was not perfect and that the possibility of a major, extraordinary error slipping through undetected is not completely impossible. And when you consider that the legendary stories of extremely rare coins often begin with whispers, rumors, and unverified sightings, it becomes clear why the 1954 sweet penny has captured imagination for so many years, especially among those who believe that somewhere out there a unique specimen exists that has errors so dramatic, so layered, and so historically significant that it earns a place among the most valuable coins in the world, rivaling pieces like the 1933 Double Eagle or the 1794 Flowing Hair Dollar in terms of prestige. And while such a discovery would shock the numismatic community, it wouldn't be entirely unprecedented, because history has shown that ultra-rare coins sometimes appear unexpectedly after decades of silence, found in boxes of old change, discovered in estate collections, or picked up at garage sales for only a few cents, which means the 1954 sweet penny and its rumored $85 million value remain part of the ongoing mystery and excitement that make coin collecting such a thrilling adventure. And before we continue, imagine for a moment someone casually finding such a coin, sliding it across a counter, mistaken for a normal penny, unaware that they're holding something worth more than luxury mansions, more than yachts, more than most sports cars combined, which adds to the allure and motivates collectors to master the details of minting errors. So let's go deeper into the types of mistakes that could theoretically create a coin of extreme value. Starting with one of the most dramatic known minting errors, the double-struck off-center error. Next. Today, as we dive into one of the most surprising, captivating, and unbelievable stories in the world of rare coins, a story that pulls you in from the very first moment because it revolves around something so ordinary, so commonly tossed into drawers or jars or pockets, and yet in the rarest circumstances capable of transforming into a life-changing treasure. And today we're talking about the astonishing case of the 1946 wheat penny that collectors estimate at an unbelievable $23 million thanks to a combination of unusual minting errors, unrepeatable conditions, and mysterious mistakes that turned what should have been just another post-war Lincoln cent into one of the most desirable pieces of numismatic history ever to slip through the U.S. Mint's doors. And as we explore the possibilities, the errors, the rumors, the physical anomalies, and everything that makes this coin so spectacularly valuable, you'll start to realize why something so small could command such a massive price tag, especially when even professional collectors argue that the 1946 wheat penny, when struck with the right defects, could be one of the most dramatic survivors of the transitional issues that came after World War II, a period when the mint was shifting from wartime production methods to peacetime consistency, which created the perfect environment for mistakes that today's collectors worship, because the more dramatic the error, the more extreme the value, and in the case of this mythical multimillion-dollar penny, the story begins with the fact that 1946 was the year the mint switched back to its standard bronze alloy after experimenting with zinc-coated steel in 1943 for wartime rationing, so the machinery, the planchets, the leftover stock, and the experimental material changes collided in ways that make experts believe a handful of extraordinary off-metal and mistruck pennies could have escaped the quality control processes, especially because old leftover steel planchets from 1943 sometimes ended up mixed into later batches, which is why collectors have spent decades hunting for off-metal 1944, 1945, and yes, even 1946 wheat pennies that were accidentally struck on the wrong planchet. And the possibility that a 1946 cent was struck on a leftover steel blank is one of the major reasons such a coin could be worth a fortune, because an off-metal error from that period is almost like a mint-time capsule revealing that human error, machine limitations, and post-war chaos blended perfectly to create something that wasn't supposed to exist. So imagine finding a 1946 wheat penny that weighs less than it should, sticks to a magnet, shows the wrong coloration, or reflects the unusual surface characteristics of a steel planchet instead of the expected bronze. And collectors agree that if such a coin surfaced today in near-perfect condition, it would spark a frenzy capable of sending the value soaring past $23 million. And that's only the beginning, because besides off-metal planchets, there were dramatic striking issues linked to worn dies, improperly aligned presses, clogged details, and doubled inscriptions, and any combination of these could create a one-of-a-kind piece, especially a dramatic double die error affecting key features like the date 1946, the word liberty, or the motto "In God We Trust." And if a double die is strong enough and clear enough, collectors will fight aggressively for ownership. Especially if the error was never officially recorded and exists only in a single known example, which is another scenario that pushes the price toward unimaginable heights, because rarity is the king of value and nothing boosts rarity like a unique die variety. But what would make this particular 1946 wheat penny even more valuable than a normal double die is if it combines multiple errors in a single strike, such as being struck on the wrong metal while also showing doubling or die cracks, or even being misaligned. And while that might sound impossible, experts acknowledge that chaotic transitional years at the mint did produce bizarre coins that defy expectations, and every time a new discovery surfaces it reminds collectors just how unpredictable minting was during that era. So imagine a 1946 penny that comes from a die accidentally carried over from a different year, a die that was slightly miscut, clogged with grease, or damaged, creating distortions in Lincoln's portrait, missing details in the wheat stalks on the reverse, or faint ghost-like impressions left behind by earlier die clashes, and combine that with the possibility that the press struck the planchet off-center, leaving a crescent-shaped blank margin or causing the rim to expand strangely on one side while compressing on the other, and such a combination could easily push the value from thousands to millions. And in the hypothetical world where one specific example possesses all the right traits in pristine condition with perfect color, almost untouched surfaces, and a nearly impossible minting signature, collectors estimate its theoretical auction value at around $23 million, which might sound extreme, but remember that the rarest coins like the 1933 Double Eagle and the 1794 Flowing Hair Dollar have already hit tens of millions at auction, proving the market will pay any price for absolute uniqueness. And what gives the 1946 penny this mythical status is that so few people inspect their coins closely, which means a true rarity might still be hiding in a jar or an attic or an old envelope lost between household clutter. And when we consider die deterioration, early strikes, late strikes, planchet flaws, and the unexplained shift from wartime emergency production back to traditional processes, the number of known and unknown anomalies skyrockets, creating endless possibilities for a once-in-a-lifetime discovery that no one has authenticated yet. And then there's speculation among some collectors that a limited number of trial strikes were made in early 1946 using experimental alloys, meaning a handful of test pieces could have been produced and never documented, and if even one of those experimental coins made it into general circulation before being caught, its value would be astronomical because experimental planchets represent the rarest tier of U.S. mint errors, especially for pennies from the 1940s. And if you add mystery to rarity, collectors become unstoppable in their pursuit, building bidding wars so intense that the value climbs beyond logical limits, transforming a tiny copper coin into a symbol of numismatic legend. But beyond off-metals, doubled dies and experimental compositions, another important category includes the dramatic laminations and peeling errors caused by impurities in the alloy. Because in 1946 the bronze mixture wasn't always perfectly consistent and leftover wartime materials sometimes contaminated the batches, creating splits, cracks and exposed layers on the surface of the coin, and when such an error is perfectly preserved, it may create patterns that collectors consider beautiful, artistic, or scientifically important, especially if the lamination exposes the underlying metal in a unique shape or direction. And when those laminations occur around the date or the portrait, they can significantly increase a coin's desirability, and in some cases, if the pattern resembles lightning, feathers or another visually striking form, the coin becomes famous within collector circles, especially if it is the only known example with such a dramatic appearance, and when rarity meets visual impact, value spikes instantly. And then we also have the possibility of a 1946 wheat penny being struck on a foreign planchet, because the U.S. Mint occasionally struck coins for other countries using blanks that sometimes accidentally mixed with U.S. coinage, and if a 1946 penny was struck on a foreign coin planchet, such as one that was slightly smaller, lighter, or made of a different alloy, the error could be unbelievably valuable, especially if the metal composition tests confirm it as authentic, and this type of error has historical precedence, so every year collectors test thousands of pennies hoping to discover one that sounds different when dropped, weighs differently on a scale or reacts unexpectedly to a magnet, and the more anomalies a coin displays, the stronger the value grows. But at the heart of this $23 million valuation is the belief that somewhere out there, possibly in a private collection or an undiscovered hoard, lies a 1946 penny exhibiting the perfect storm of mint errors, preserved in a condition so flawless that even microscopic examination would reveal its authenticity and historical significance. Because the minting processes of the 1940s were nowhere near the ultra-regulated precision we see today, and because of that, coins from that era carry the unpredictability that excites collectors the most. And what makes this theoretical coin so seductive is the idea that its rarity isn't just based on low survival numbers, but on the almost non-existent probability that so many unusual conditions aligned in a single moment to create something the mint never intended to produce. Next, 1951 wheat penny. Today we're exploring the unbelievable story behind the 1951 wheat penny that collectors claim could reach an astonishing value of $26 million because of the unusual combination of errors, mistakes, striking anomalies, and minting possibilities that make it one of the most intriguing coins ever discussed in numismatic circles. And as we begin this journey, I want to welcome all of you to the channel where we uncover the mysteries behind coins that look simple on the surface but contain layers of history, craftsmanship, missteps, and accidents that transform them into legendary pieces. And the 1951 wheat penny is a perfect example of how a coin you might think is common can suddenly become the focus of massive attention when the right mixture of rarity and error-driven uniqueness comes into play. So let's dig into every detail about how a penny minted decades ago has earned rumors of being worth tens of millions as collectors obsess over its unexplained qualities, starting with the fact that the 1951 penny was produced in huge numbers but only a microfraction contains the microscopic deviations, metal inconsistencies, double strikes, overpolished areas, off-center impressions, and die deterioration marks that push its value into mythical territory among collectors, because the wider the difference between an error coin and a regular circulation piece, the greater the desire from collectors who chase ultra-rare minting accidents. And in the case of the 1951 wheat penny, several factors have combined in unusual ways, beginning with die cracks that formed on certain struck examples which created faint but visible lines across Lincoln's portrait or around the wheat stalks on the reverse, lines that are not just surface scratches from circulation but embedded structural flaws created at the exact moment the coin was struck, and these lines can branch, curve, or even intersect with other errors, creating a coin that is effectively one of a kind. And then we have stories about double die obverse variations where the date or lettering shows doubling due to slight movement during striking, something that happens when the die shifts or vibrates unexpectedly, resulting in a shadow-like second impression. And collectors go absolutely wild for clear doubling because it instantly separates a coin from the billions of standard issues, making it a prized error category. And in the 1951 series, these doubled elements are particularly fascinating because they are not uniform but instead appear with varying intensity and location depending on the die involved, leading to speculation that only a very small batch of coins ever left the mint with this type of error. And then there are off-center strikes where the coin blank was not perfectly aligned, causing Lincoln's profile or the wheat stalks to appear shifted toward one edge, which creates a dramatic and visually obvious error that collectors consider extremely desirable, especially when the off-center percentage is significant but the full date remains visible. And the 1951 penny offers examples of such off-center strikes that are believed to exist in extremely tiny numbers, giving them tremendous value due to rarity. And next we have the possibility of clipped planchets, which occur when the blank metal piece was improperly cut from the metal sheet, leaving the coin with a crescent-shaped missing piece along the rim. And while clipped planchets exist for many years and denominations, finding a 1951 wheat penny with this error, combined with other anomalies, has generated incredible excitement in the collector world, especially when the clip shows clean metal flow lines that prove authenticity. And speaking of metal flow, we must discuss the metal composition concerns that have surrounded some 1951 pennies because although they were minted in standard bronze composition, there are rumors and claims of odd color pennies, lightly struck pennies that appear underweight or overweight, and even pennies showing subtle tone differences that suggest impurities or slight composition variations in the planchets used. And when a composition anomaly lines up with other mint errors, it multiplies value exponentially because collectors believe such coins represent a perfect storm of minting irregularities that should never have occurred. And another crucial element is die polishing, something the mint often did to clean dies after extended use, but overpolished dies can accidentally erase details, creating ghost-like areas or missing lines in Lincoln's jacket or wheat stalks. and some 1951 pennies exhibit these faded features that give them a mysterious soft focus look which collectors avidly seek because it indicates a rare moment in minting when a die reached an extreme condition before being replaced. And then we move to the theory of repunched mint marks, especially for the 1951 pennies minted in Denver or San Francisco, where the mint marks were applied by hand using a punch, creating opportunities for slight misalignment, double punching, or overlapping impressions, and when the mint mark shows signs of repunching it is considered an important error that commands high demand, and some collectors believe that certain 1951D and 1951S variations exhibit extremely clear repunched mint marks that have not been widely discovered, meaning their potential value is theoretically enormous, and this speculation contributes to the mythic multi-million-dollar valuation placed on the most extreme error examples, and of course the wear patterns on certain coins also tell their own stories because some error coins survive in unexpectedly high grades with sharp details and minimal circulation damage, which makes their rarity even more breathtaking. And if a major error coin from 1951 survived in near-perfect condition, it would instantly become a numismatic superstar capable of reaching values far beyond traditional pricing guides, especially if the error itself is dramatic, visually captivating, and verifiably authentic. And the reason collectors are willing to imagine valuations as high as $26 million is because the global market for historically significant error coins has skyrocketed in recent years, driven by social media discoveries, auction competition, investor interest, and the growing realization that minting mistakes from past decades are far rarer than once believed, and so a 1951 penny with multiple errors, especially if unique, enters the realm of priceless cultural artifact rather than simple numismatic curiosity, and when we combine all these possibilities, the doubling, the die cracks, the off-center strikes, the clipped planchets, the polishing issues, the composition irregularities, the repunched mint marks, the strike pressure inconsistencies, and the mystique that surrounds coins that somehow slip through the mint's quality control, we end up with a coin that represents not just a monetary object but a story frozen in metal, a story about human error, industrial processes, and the unpredictable nature of machinery in an era far less automated than today. And because collectors love stories as much as they love the coins themselves, the legend of the 1951 wheat penny continues to grow, inspiring people to check their old jars, drawers, piggy banks, and inherited collections for that one extraordinary penny that might carry a life-changing value. And as we wrap this exploration, remember that the world of rare coins rewards curiosity, patience, and the willingness to look closely at even the most ordinary objects because hidden treasures are often disguised as everyday change. So if you enjoyed learning about the incredible possibilities behind the 1951 wheat penny and want more unbelievable coin discoveries, make sure to like and subscribe for more amazing content. Today we're diving into one of the most unbelievable stories in the entire world of coin collecting, a story that might have you rushing to check every old jar, drawer, and box in your home, because we're talking about the 1945 wheat penny, a coin that many people overlook because of how common it seems at first glance, yet under the right circumstances and with the right combination of errors, mistakes, conditions, and minting anomalies, it can skyrocket in value to a staggering $18 million. And in this long deep dive we're exploring exactly why this seemingly ordinary cent could become a life-changing treasure, how the errors occur, what varieties exist, what specific minting mistakes transform a regular 1945 penny into a multi-million-dollar rarity, and why collectors go absolutely wild whenever one of these extraordinary pieces appears on the market. Because even though the 1945 wheat penny had a massive mintage with hundreds of millions of coins released at the end of World War II, the rarest pieces from that year are those that slipped through the cracks of the minting process with freak errors, double strikes, off planchets, transitional metals, clipped edges, wrong hubs, misaligned dies, and even composition anomalies that weren't supposed to exist, making them not just rare but nearly mythical. And the kind of finds that spark bidding wars among elite collectors who are always searching for the next once-in-a-generation discovery. So settle in, because we are about to explore every possibility, every error, every microscopic detail, and every thrilling scenario that could push the value of a 1945 wheat penny into the realm of million-dollar legends, starting with the historical moment that shaped this coin's production and the chaotic environment inside the U.S. Mint in the final months of the war, where material shortages, rushed production, equipment strain, and shifts in minting protocols created a perfect storm for incredible mistakes to occur, leading to coins that collectors today classify as marvels of imperfection, and each one of these errors plays a crucial role in determining why a specific 1945 penny could be worth so much, because when you're dealing with multi-million-dollar valuations, you're not just considering one mistake but a combination of factors that come together like puzzle pieces, including rarity, appeal, condition, provenance, mint state grading, documented authenticity, and the unique circumstances under which the error occurred. And when all these elements converge, collectors are willing to pay unimaginable amounts of money for a single lucky cent, especially one from a year where countless mistakes were possible but only a few actually escaped into circulation. And among these possibilities, some of the most valuable include double die obverse varieties, where the lettering on the front of the coin shows dramatic doubling because the dies were improperly prepared, creating bold doubling on details like the date, the motto, or the word liberty, which is one of the most desirable forms of mint error because the doubling is visible with the naked eye and creates immediate appeal, especially when it's strong and centered, and because double dies were more common earlier in the 1940s due to frequent die reprocessing. A powerful double die on a 1945 penny could be an absolute monster in the auction world, especially in high grade. And then there's the possibility of off-metal strikes where the coin was accidentally minted on a planchet intended for another denomination, like a silver dime or even a leftover wartime steel cent blank from 1943, and because these misstruck planchets should not have been present in 1945, any such occurrence would be mind-blowingly rare, making it one of the most valuable varieties imaginable, since a wrong planchet strike automatically launches a coin into a high-value category, and when combined with a date that already fascinates collectors due to its historical context, the price can go into the millions. And this is also where transitional errors come into play, because anytime the mint shifts materials or processes, possibilities arise for coins being struck with the wrong composition. And even though 1945 pennies were supposed to be made of copper alloy, leftover blanks or mix-ups could produce extremely rare anomalies, and such errors can become the crown jewels of error collecting, especially when authenticated and graded by major services like PCGS or NGC, which bring legitimacy to the rarity and drive the price even higher among competing collectors. But that's only the beginning, because another major category of valuable errors in the 1945 wheat penny includes off-center strikes where the coin was stamped with the dies misaligned, producing a dramatic shift in the design. And the more off-center the strike while still preserving the full date, the more valuable the coin becomes, especially when the off-center exceeds 50%, because collectors adore visually striking mistakes and are always willing to pay premium prices for coins with extreme misalignment, yet even that pales in comparison to double-struck coins, where a cent was hit twice or even 3 times by the dies in different angles or positions, creating bizarre overlapping images, stacked lettering, ghost-like silhouettes, and warped shapes that make the coin look like something from a museum of minting anomalies. And these dramatic errors often command sky-high prices, especially when the second strike occurred off-center or on a different axis, producing an unmistakable and visually shocking error that immediately draws attention. And as we look deeper into all the incredible variations that could exist, we can't ignore the role of die cracks, die breaks, and cuds, which occur when the minting dies literally break apart while striking coins, leaving raised metal scars across the surface, missing sections of the design, or huge blobs of metal at the coin's rim where part of the die collapsed. And while these errors alone usually don't command millions, when combined with other major mistakes like wrong planchets or strong doubling, they amplify rarity and uniqueness, pushing the value even further upward, especially when the coin remains in near-mint condition. Something unbelievably rare given that almost all 1945 pennies were heavily circulated, meaning that finding one with a dramatic error in pristine condition is like winning a lottery, and collectors will compete ferociously for such a piece, which drives the valuation into the multi-million-dollar range. And another area worth exploring is repunched mint marks, especially from the Denver or San Francisco mints, since mint workers often punched mint marks by hand in this era, leading to overpunched letters, shadowed impressions, doubled mint marks, or even rotated repunchings. And while these errors alone aren't enough to produce an $18 million price tag, they become significant when combined with other rare features, creating a layered error coin that stands out as a one-of-a-kind anomaly. And rarity is everything in the high-stakes world of numismatics, because collectors crave uniqueness, and the rarer the combination of errors, the more astronomical the price becomes, especially when we imagine an extraordinary 1945 wheat penny that contains multiple dramatic mistakes, has exceptional eye appeal, and sits in an extraordinarily high grade, possibly MS-67 or above, something nearly impossible to find today because coins from this era typically passed through heavy wartime circulation, experiencing wear, damage, corrosion, and the usual signs of age, making mint state survivors rare enough, and mint state survivors with extreme errors unbelievably scarce. So when a coin meets all these impossible conditions, collectors know they're looking at a once-in-a lifetime treasure worth millions. And the world of coin auctions shows us how this plays out year after year with astonishing bidding wars, because whenever a rare era coin emerges, especially with huge visual impact or historical significance, collectors from around the world drive the price to record-breaking levels. And although no publicly known 1945 penny has yet sold for $18 million, the hypothetical value becomes realistic if a spectacular and previously undiscovered error coin were to surface, especially one with multiple anomaly layers, perfect condition, unquestionable authenticity, and a backstory tied to wartime minting confusion, which creates not just financial value but emotional and historical appeal. And that's what truly drives incredible prices, the combination of rarity and storytelling, because collectors aren't merely buying metal, they're buying history. An accident frozen in time, a moment captured in copper that defied the minting system and survived decades unnoticed until someone finally discovered it. And this is what keeps coin hunting so exciting, the idea that one extraordinary coin could still be out there waiting in someone's old coffee can or hidden in the bottom of a forgotten drawer. And when you add all these possibilities together, the double strikes, the triple strikes, the off-metal compositions,